Greetings. My name is Māhealani Uchiyama, Director of the Center for International Dance. Welcome to Dare, Conversations in the Diaspora. Dare is a production of the African American Mbira Project, an initiative to perpetuate the music and tradition of Mbira within the African American community. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I reside in the Bay Area, a land contemporarily known as Ohlone territory. There are 8 language dialects and many active tribal groups. With Dare, we aspire to explore the music of Zimbabwe and other performance traditions which exist in the diaspora. Our conversations with artists will focus on their art form and their personal journey. Additionally, you will have a chance to ask questions of our guests. Dr. Moyo Rainos Mutamba is an educator, writer, and lecturer in social work at the University of Waterloo and community development at the University of Toronto. He is the founder of the Ubuntu Learning Village in Gutu, Zimbabwe. Ubuntu Village is a community rooted in Jivanyu culture, which teaches that connection with the land is connection with the self, and which is centered around the arts and ceremony. We are delighted to welcome Moyo Mutamba.
Mbira aonde mauya mauya aonde mauya 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 aonde mauya mauya aonde mauya 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 aonde mauya mauya. Shaita say mambuwe Shaita say go muya pera onde Shaita say mambuwe Shaita say go onde mauya mauya aonde mauya 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 aonde mauya 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 Mauya, mauya. Mauya, mauya, onde, mauya, mauya.
Beautiful. Moyo masikati.
Masikati, masikati, maswera seko, tete mahea.
Wera, that's wera. It's so wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Of course, of course. That was beautiful. Mauya Mauya, such a beautiful song, such a perfect song for welcoming you here and all of our viewers. I'd like to start as I always do, assuming that there are people who might be new to what you're doing and what we're about. Could you say a few words about how the Mbira factors into everyday life in Zimbabwe?
Mbira goes a long, long way back. And when you think about life in Zimbabwe, you think about life, the one that we experience in this moment in time. And then you also think about life of the ancestors. So when I play like the way I just played here, I'm not just playing for myself, I'm also playing, for the ancestors that surround us all. So in Zimbabwe, Mbira is the medium through which we connect to ancestors. It is also the sound that we use to gather people to celebrate, whether it is birth, whether it is death, whether it is marriage, etc. It is also the sound that we use to entertain ourselves, even outside of the context of organized ceremony or gatherings. And I think the most important thing is that Mbira, meaning both the instrument and the culture and the songs that come with it, are the text through which we understand our history and through which we also share our history with each other.
It's rather like here in the West, we would have a library that we would go to.
Indeed.
To learn these things about Western history and what's important. And, in Zimbabwe, there's Mbira. That's the connection. It connects everyone to one another and connects you to the ancestors and to people who are yet to be born.
Indeed.
It's beautiful. And so who are your teachers and mentors in this tradition?
Again, you'll hear me going back and forth because I like the dead and the people who are living. So you'll see me moving back and forth between the dead and the living. So when I think about my teachers, I think about the early days that I heard the sound when I was young, and I heard the sound from the radio. I also heard the sound from my uncle who played it. So I consider the people that played on the radio and my uncle who played, who never taught me, my teachers. I also consider the ancestors from whom we inherited the sound, my teachers. And in terms of like physical learning, I consider we are still at tuition. The first Mbira player that I owned, the Mbira instrument that I owned, and the desert that I owned, it was a gift from Buya. The first like deep songs that I learned was also from her. And many other, my friends, Evelyn, that I used to play with here in Toronto, now she is in the US, Evelyn Umkwadea. My friend, we call him Master Chivero. He also taught me I consider Ford Kwenda taught me some music. Kudzai Kazai taught me some songs. Alois Mtinhiri taught me some songs, continues to teach me when I go home. Garikai Tirikoti taught me a lot of stuff. And he continues to teach me whenever I go to Zimbabwe. So I have so many teachers, and some that I've like met. One day I learned a song and I completely forgot who I learned from. It happens when you meet a lot of people at festivals. So I would say Mbira I've learned from so many people, and through it I've also developed relationships with so many people.
I'm really struck by the thought of your teachers being in the spirit world, and I know that with Mbira, sometimes you can learn in your dreams. Like you would wake up with a song that was given to you by spirit, and yeah, I've always thought that was such a beautiful thing. And what I really want to talk to you about is the Ubuntu Learning Village, where you've created a program that focuses on Indigenous cultural revitalization. And first of all, could you define for our viewers what is meant by the term Ubuntu?
Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a Ngoni word. Ngoni is kind of like a group of nations and languages that go all the way, like South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, like that whole eastern, southern, central Africa. And it just means a way of being in relation with others. And in a way, like translating it to English feels weird because in that philosophy, there is no other, right? So even using the word other is kind of funny. So we are in each other's lives. We are dependent on each other. We are forever connected, even though we don't acknowledge it, even though we don't want to say it in these words. We are. Right? I am here on indigenous land, on Anishinaabe, Otonoshoni land. I don't grow my own food. I rely on farmers. Even though I pay for the food at the supermarket or at the farmer's market, and act as if it's mine by virtue of me paying money, it is not. Right? Someone else had to grow that food. Right? And the land had to be used to grow that food, right? The water had to play its part, the sun had to play its part. So this web of relationships is real, is alive, and that's what Ubuntu is about. It's recognition of that. It's not like saying, well, we have to create those relationships. They are there. They are. I am because of all that is. That is Ubuntu.
That is Ubuntu. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. So tell us about what happens at Ubuntu Village.
So Ubuntu Village, you can think of it as a hub that is located in a rural community in Serima, where most of the people are farmers. They grow their own food. Mostly people rely on their own work. And what we do there is we do a few things. We tend to use the three words: say art, community, and food. So let's begin with art. So with art, we gather and play Mbira, and we have a Mbira education program. So we actually have a resident teacher who teaches Mbira right now. It's Joyce Warikandwa who is teaching, and she lives there. We've had other teachers, and other teachers come and go. And then we have a resident band, a resident Mbira group that you saw in the video at the beginning of the show. We also do dance, singing, hosho, sheka playing, goma. and visual art. We also do so for the community part. We gather people to learn together, whether it is learning conflict transformation, whether it is learning beekeeping, whether it is learning growing organic food. We also work with the community to create sort of like systems to support the community. So think of an education as a system, right? So we have within Ubuntu Learning Village, we have a free school. And the free school is a community school in the sense that it is run by people from within the community. And I am part of that community. I play my own role, which is to fundraise and also to mentor the teachers, kind of like craft the pedagogical philosophy of the school, etc., and connect the community to the international world, because that's where I am in the diaspora. Whilst the community on the ground builds the school, they make sure that the children are fed. So the children are fed lunch every day, and their families in the community take turns to cook for the children. To make sure that the school area is clean, to make sure that anything that has to do with the school that they can do, they will do. We also have adult education programs. So right now we have an art program where we work with upcycled materials to create beautiful stuff. So we literally like send people to go pick stuff in garbage dumps in a close by town in the Gutu area, and then they come back with all that stuff. They turn them into jewelry, into bowls, etc. We also have a program for where we gather women and talk about women's health, food, anything else that is happening in their homes, sort of like a space for the women to really share and openly and um, and collectively figure out you know um, the different things that they need for their day-to-day well-being. Yeah, so we do that. So that's the community part. And then the food part is one of the things that is happening in Zimbabwe is the diet has changed so much, and it hasn't changed in a way that is like exciting. So imagine that sometimes people wake up and they drink tea. And when I say tea, I mean like black tea with sugar, a lot of sugar, and then maybe sometimes a piece of bread, um, and that constitute a meal, right? And you spend a whole day, and then you have like sometimes sadza, which is these days made out of corn, which is not actually indigenous to Zimbabwe. Um, yeah, and like so, the diet has really changed, and we're trying to support support people remembering the indigenous diet, the wild fruits, millets, etc., that support people's health. Yeah, so we do that by actually growing it ourselves. Right? We grow the millets, we grow um, nuts, like Zimbabwean dishes, especially the stews are very much like there's a lot of uh, nut-based sauces, right? So that we can demonstrate that you can actually eat well, and you don't have to go and buy sugar, right? You don't have to go and buy. Uh, there's this thing that I don't like in Zimbabwe. It's called cremora, and it's a tea whitener that is made out of palm oil and sugar. So I explain when I'm explaining to people, I'm like, you realize what you're actually drinking is sugar and oil and more sugar because you add more sugar into the tea, right? And the systems to support people's knowledge around health is not strong. So we're trying to, support people in that way by growing the food ourselves and elevating that indigenous diet.
Recentering the indigenous ways of being
Yes,
as opposed to what has been imposed.
yes.
So I would love for you to share with us what inspired you to do this work.
Oh, what inspired me? I grew up I grew up basically in a very difficult way. I so my I grew up moving around a lot because my mom left my dad when I was a little baby. I think I was like a year or so because of domestic abuse, and so she left, and we went with her, me and my sisters. And then wherever she went, she had struggles, and she wanted to really learn and do more school, but because of the colonial system of the IDs, she could not actually continue with school because she did not have IDs that said the name of the husband that she was with at that moment in time. So it's kind of like colonialism, uh, classism meets patriarchy, and with disastrous consequences. So she ended up giving up and then got into sex work. And that's how she looked after us, but it wasn't easy. So at one point, actually, I lived on the streets, and it was tough. It was tough. I remember one of the incidents that really changed, well, not changed my life, but I still remember waking up tied up in a plastic bag, like and on the street because we slept on verandas. I woke up, someone had like literally like tied me up as a joke. I woke up, I couldn't breathe properly, and fortunately there were other people who like saw that I was trying to get up and rescued me. I got kicked out of school a lot because school we had to pay money. I had to spend many nights without eating food. I remember when my mom passed away in 1994, I went to live with my dad, and when I got to my dad, there was a drought. You see how people here talk about climate change as this thing that is going to happen in the future. Zimbabwe has been living through the effects of global warming for a very long time. And people used to grow their own food from natural rain, right, for long periods of time, but now we can't. And so when I went to live with my dad, it was now hunger. So I remember walking to school for like 12 kilometers, coming back, not eating all day, and then sharing this little morsel of sadza between 5 and 6 people. So growing like that, I always had this dream. I'm like, when I grow up, I would like to contribute to the world in such a way that the people that are in my life in some way don't have to experience this. So I was fortunate, and my brain worked with the British system, and I got a scholarship to study at university here in Canada, a full international scholarship. So I went to Trent University. That's where I did my first degree, and then U of T. That's where I did my master's, and then PhD. And so now, given that I have all this, and I have a network of friends from around the world, I think that I'm in a position to support so many people. So the idea of a free school is really inspired by my own experience of schooling. But not just in terms of like paying school fees and being fed and stuff, but also how we were treated in school. The British colonial system is terrible. It's mean. It's based on shaming, corporal punishment, etc. Right? Because of course, like its origins were to really kill the African, like kill the African in Africans, make sure that they understood how to be servants. Like they do not challenge, they do not question. So you break people's bodies, they break people's spirits. And also like the education system really continues to actually teach colonial content, right? It's very steeped in colonial Christian ideas when we have our own indigenous spiritual systems. Right? It teaches people to be competitive. You know, like we know that global coloniality, that's what it does. Right? It teaches people to be competitive. You fight among yourselves. You know, now I have money. I can hire people and pay them as little as possible, and exploit them. Right? And that's what is encouraged in the education system. So all those experiences, all those observations, are informing how I do what I do. The philosophy of the school, the way children are educated, the way children are cared for, the way they are loved, the way they are encouraged to build relationships and support each other, the way we really focus on what is the child excited about, what do they love, what do they care about, and then we invest in that instead of imposing this industrial factory system of education.
It makes me wonder how much better off we'd all be if there were more indigenous centered ways of looking at education, looking at how we feed ourselves, how we treat the land, how we treat each other. It's very inspirational. I'd like to encourage any of our audience out there who would like to post a question to do so at this time. And you can do that by putting the question in the comments section below if you have any questions for Moyo. Would you honor us with the second song, please?
Sure. The song I'll play is Mukatiende. Wake up, let's go. Urombo maniregera, urombo amaibeba, urombo maniregera, naimambo nuchimanani, ya oneri. Ndiudze iva pakaenda vamwe, urombo maniregera. Ndiudze iva pakaenda vamwe, urombo maniregera, naimambo nuchimanani, ya oneri. Sango, sango iro, sango, sango iro, randire mirasa, randire mirasa, randire mirasa.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Katiende. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much. So, what kind of challenges or, what kind of blessings have you encountered during doing this work?
Well, so if many things really. The first is that it has taught me a lot of things about myself. It has taught me about love. That love is a verb. It is what we do with how we feel. And love is not about like specific people that are, related to you by blood. In the way that we think sometimes it's like, oh, you're my cousin, you're my brother, your sister, whatever, right? Love is about understanding the infinite connections that we have across the globe, across time, across space. So it has really allowed me to meditate on love. It also has taught me about the power of the collective. We have a saying that one person cannot embrace a whole anthill. You need more people joining hands to do that. Another saying that goes, which means two hands, you cannot get bent by peas because you can juggle, right? So it has taught me really, or affirmed the power of the collective. When I think about going into Serima area, I wasn't born there. I was born like 3-4 hours away from Serima, where Ubuntu Learning Village is. The way the community received me as a new person into the community, and then the way the community came together when I started saying, we can do this, and your children are walking 6 kilometers one way to go to a school, like little 3-4-year-olds, right? And then not only just like saying yes, but also saying we are going to work to make this happen. We're going to pull together a group that is going to lead. We're going to, communicate with the community. We're going to bring the community together. Anything that we can do here, we'll do. You do your part based on your relationships that you have wherever you are. So that power, and with that, we're creating something, right? I also learned that if you have an idea, it does not need to be perfect. Start it. Start something. Just start it. And I know from this experience that people support what is good. People always support what is good. So it's really, it's beautiful. I also have learned that there are many other lessons that I'm I need to to go through, right? Lessons around process. How do we do this right now? And I will be honest, right now, like we're actually technically in a legal school because we don't have the papers from the Ministry of Education. But that's okay, as long as the children are cared for, etc. We'll deal with the colonial bureaucracy at some point, right? But imagine that we started with that, right? It will lessen our anxiety, sometimes. I've also learned that, like, really building relationships with some of the things that you're against is helpful. So, like, connecting with, like, the MPs and the political players and all that stuff is also kind of helped us to not get into trouble. Even though I'm not necessarily invested in the partisan political system, but those relationships are really, really important. Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
Oh, please go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, so many lessons. I can spend a whole day talking about the lessons.
We have a question from Betty. Along with fundraising for Ubuntu, what is Moyo up to these days in the diaspora, and how has the pandemic affected his family?
Hi, Betty. I know Betty. I teach at the University of Waterloo. I am on a full-time 2-year contract as a professor, and I teach in social work. I also teach a course at University of Toronto in community development. And I continue to play music here, look after my children, teach them music. I'm sure you have seen some of the videos. And the pandemic has been actually hard on the school because the whole idea around the kind of like the funding model that I had in mind with the school was using art, right? Using art. So us doing shows here, connecting with our friends in the US and Western Canada to do shows for us to fundraise for the school. And so it kind of just destroyed that. Yeah.
It's what can I imagine there's people hearing this story who would really love to be a part of this work. You would like to maybe donate to the school. Is there a way to do that for people?
Yeah. So we have a website. I don't know how to send the website to you, but it's
post it. We'll post it in the comments.
Okay, cool. So it's www.ubuntuearth.org. www.ubuntuearth.org. And if you go there, then you can see a donation button through Giving Way. So Giving Way collects for us. I think what we found helpful is actually when people do monthly donations. With people donating like $5, $10, and just having that consistency has allowed us to like plan and see where we are at financially. I continue to do shows, live shows, well, not live shows, shows on Zoom and etc. And what I've done is everything that I make from the shows goes to the school. So everything that I earn through Mbira music, whether it is like me playing Mbira or whether it is me giving talks, it all goes to the school. The pandemic has been really hard, and of course, like for the children, we had to stop the school because of the pandemic, and children really struggled because in addition to the pandemic, there was also a drought last year. So the children who were coming to access food at the school could not access the food. Right? We like one of the things that has happened in Zimbabwe is that a lot of the younger people have gone out of Zimbabwe. I'm here in Canada. A lot of younger people have gone to South Africa, and some of these young people left their children in Zimbabwe. So we have a couple grandmothers. One of them is looking after 11 kids by herself. Another grandmother is looking after 8 kids by herself, and all of them come to Ubuntu. So when they were coming to Ubuntu before the pandemic, she knew that she didn't have to worry about their lunch, right? Then when the pandemic hit, like 2 of the children were really sick. We lost one child, not to the pandemic, but I think it was due to malnutrition. And it was hard for people. Now the kids are back and they're eating and stuff. And also it's harvest time now, and there were some good rains this year. So hopefully we'll have a lot of food. Children will have a lot of food in their respective families.
Wow. Well, I hope that people who hear this amazing story of this work that goes on in Zimbabwe will be inspired to become a part of it and an ongoing part of it, because it's such a beautiful thing to centralize and to reestablish indigenous ways of being in the world. And I think with that, I really want to thank you so very much, Moyo, for participating in Dare, Conversations in the Diaspora. And I would like to know if you would honor us with one more song at the close of the show. But before we do that, I also want to thank our viewers who joined us today, and those who submitted questions, and those who are going to be watching after the broadcast. We always have a number of really wonderful comments that appear when people are able to watch the show. So I would like to also say that Dare, Conversations in the Diaspora, is a program of the Māhealani Uchiyama Center for International Dance, a nonprofit organization dedicated to fostering cross-cultural understanding in our community through dance and music. The African American Mbira project is supported in part by the Alliance for California Traditional Arts, the City of Berkeley Civic Arts Program, the San Francisco Foundation, and generous donations from viewers like you. We'd like to encourage you to consider a donation to our nonprofit by following this link on your screen. And we will be back next month on June 5th at 2 p.m. with another edition of Dare, Conversations in the Diaspora. Until then, please be well, stay safe, and keep the music in your heart. And Moyo, thank you again so much for being a part of Dare and telling that incredible story.
Well, thank you for having me, Mahea, and I'm really inspired by what you're doing, and I hope we continue to connect and hopefully I can come one day and you can also come to Zimbabwe. I mean, one thing that I didn't say is that Ubuntu it's kind of like an international hub. So people from different parts of the world come visit and share learning. It's a learning village, literally. We love learning. So if you come, you teach us something, we also teach you something, and it's beautiful that way. So for people that want to visit Zimbabwe, please come. You have a home. And one of the things that we do is, based on our culture, it's a gift culture. We don't charge for people to come and stay. You can come and stay, and you contribute like food, because sometimes we have to buy it. Otherwise, you have a home and you have a huge forest, a river, waterfalls, music and beautiful people. So come visit us. So
I
I'm
look.
gonna play. Sounds good. Sounds good. I'm gonna play Totsungaira. And I think it is appropriate at this moment in time because we're all praying for the end of the pandemic. Totsungaira. Totsungaira muchiona, yawere totsungaira muchiona mwe. Totsungaira muchiona, yawere totsungaira muchiona urugu. Totsungaira muchiona, yawere totsungaira muchiona naimangu. Chipine chipiko zvacho zvamungaite vana vangu, tangai mapira mudzimu yenyu. Chipine chipiko zvacho zvamungaite vana vangu, tangai mapira mudzimu yenyu. Zvaita seiko vakuru vondembe, hamuna rudo nevana ava vadzungaira. Zvaita seiko vakuru vondembe, hamuna rudo nevana ava vadzungaira.